You want to know a bit more about the cooling on the Razer Blade Pro GTX 1080? Want to find out a little bit more about the cooling on the Alienware 13? And how about an exciting prototype, a handheld gaming device developed by Exklim? Let's have a Have You Say interview with them. So, hello, this is Stephen from Owner Disown, and today we've got an excellent guest for our Have You Say. It's a subscriber called Exklim. How do you do, Exklim? Thanks for joining me.
Nice to meet you, man. I'm
here.
Yeah,
Finally. I know we've been chatting for a long time.
Get the review in.
Now, Exklim's a computer expert. This guy is a professional. He does a lot of work on BIOS. Can you just explain a little bit about the type of stuff you do?
Well, what happened is that some company that has few issues with BIOSes or, let's say, overheating computers, they usually contact me directly to try to fix them and try to give them very cooling profiles for, let's say, to improve their overheat or just to improve the overall cooling on the system. But sometimes it's not up to the hardware to take care of the cooling. It's more up to the profile of the fans and how they're going to be functioning depending on the task that you're using. Many computers and many manufacturers, they prefer to keep their computer silent. At normal use, let's say you're just doing some more Excel, PowerPoint, YouTube and everything, so you want to keep a quiet computer while you work.
Yes.
And once you open something heavy task like video rendering or video games or whatever, you have to make the profile, especially for each hardware, for each kind of die of the CPU, GPU, and then try to start configuring the fans on level per level, depending on the temperature of each device. So they're gonna start ramping up little by little. They can't just start suddenly, because then you're gonna notice the noise in the fans, and then you're gonna be very annoyed. But if they start low, little by little, that's why many people complain. They say, "Oh, it's overheating," because they start some prime 95, on their CPU to test, and the fans just start cranking up little by little. That's just so that you don't notice too much the noise, and it's a little bit peaceful going up little by little.
Okay.
And not till it reaches maximum. So it's like, let's say, more mining plant,
So you do work in the BIOS to control the rate of the fans depending on what temperature.
Right, and many companies send me their units to test. Like recently, I got the Razer Blade Pro, which had some overheating issues. I think I solved them already because the fans were starting so late before the GPU was getting hot. So that was making the CPU to get hot because they're sharing the same heatsink. There are 3 fans inside of it. So the third fan is pretty much for the motherboard and the overall hardware. How can I say, the unit, the chassis around, it gets hot. It's very hot. It's a very heavy computer. So the GPU has to keep cooling. So I managed to start the fan around 40. Because that computer has a G-Sync enabled, and MSI has this cool thing that you can disable G-Sync and enable Optimus. But some other companies like Razer and Dell and Sager, Eurocom, Clevo, and even Aorus, they don't spend so much time trying to configure their system BIOS to have those options, to switch to integrated graphics to save battery power.
Yes.
Unfortunately, with this Razer, the Razer Blade Pro, they enable G-Sync. So what this means is that the GPU is always enabled 100%. So whatever you open, there's always a hit up on the GPU that takes a lot of wattage and voltages. And the battery in it is around 99. It's actually 99 watts at 6 cells. So that thing should give you around maybe 3 hours. In my test, it was giving me around 2 hours and a half because the GPU was always enabled. So that means the GPU was getting hot. Once you start to game, the system was already hot. So pretty much you reach very high levels. I remember I saw almost 90, 92 Celsius on the GPU, which...
On the GPU? Wow.
It wasn't throttling, because they set the GPU to throttle at 95, but it was just too much. The system can hold it because it's full aluminum, the thing, and it's even the motherboard can hold even more than the temperature that it's set on the GPU.
Now that was a GTX 1080 on there, was it?
That was 1080, right? GTX 1080 with 8 GB GDDR5X, and the cool thing about that is that those laptops comes with GDDR5X, but they're Samsung. They're not Hynix. They are not Alpida, they are not Micron, they're Samsung, and that is very good to try to conserve heat and overall cooling in the system, because Samsung is very good for trying to use like lower power consumption, which is creates less heat.
And what were the CPU temperatures you recorded?
I'm talking about now the first BIOS. All this that we just talked is about the first BIOS that I encountered without the fix that I did. Once that was in the 92 Celsius, what was at gaming. Let's say if you do some benchmarks, of course, it's going to overheat. It's going to reach 95. It's going to throttle. The CPU, it's a 16 i7-6700HQ. It clocks up. I think Razer that clocked it up at 3.7 on the BIOS. It's a 3.5 CPU, but they clock it up 3.7. Oh. Unfortunately, when you are using, let's say, a game 92 or benchmarking, the CPU will go even up to, it will go down to 1.8 gigahertz, because it'll reach right away its cap, which is 90 Celsius. It's going to start throttling at 90 Celsius. At gaming, it was good because Skylake, it's while gaming, because it's using the Intel integrated graphics as a physics processor. When you're gaming, it's pretty much going to use, many people doesn't know about this, but it uses the Intel HD as a physics processor so that you can render more things on the game, even though you have an external GPU. So it helps a lot. So yeah, it was pretty much, it was 92 Celsius on the GPU and around 88 to 90 Celsius on the CPU. But the CPU kept 3.3 gigahertz on gaming, no problem, and the GPU stayed safe. The thing is, many people, those, if you buy those machines, you are buying them because you're an extreme user, a pro user, because you're paying almost, let's say, up to $5,000, the highest configuration for those things. It's a particular design, it's a laptop. And
yeah, it's a cool design, yeah. Okay.
Having that technology inside of that, in that little form factor is amazing. So yeah, I did throttle when I started running my benchmarks. Prime 95.
CPU benchmarks at the throttle.
CPU benchmarks and GPU benchmarks, like Firestrike and 3D Mark and everything all together. And yeah, the GPU went up to 95, and the CPU just kept throttling and dropped down to 1.8. And sometimes it was going to 800 megahertz.
Wow.
Which is very low, but that was like for 1 second. I know Skylake usually do that just to try to cool down the cores in the CPU. After my fix, I managed to get 85 on the GPU because I started the fans once the GPU reached 40 Celsius. So like that, the overall system, because it's full aluminum, that thing, the Razer Blade Pro is full aluminum. That thing, if you don't keep it cool, it gets hot. And if you start some game and everything, it's just going to get more hot, and it brings that heat back up. So I managed to make it at 85 Celsius on the GPU and keep stable the CPU as much as I could. It was around 2.7 gigahertz in heavy benchmarks, heavy test.
Yeah, heavy usage. Okay. And how loud are the fans then? Are they, because I imagine...
Oh yeah, they're loud.
They're loud, yeah. They're not the biggest fans.
I think it's the loudest one. I hear there are 3 fans in that thing, and they're loud. Even the small one they have, the third one, that is near the battery, because once you're using it a small while, the battery gets very hot because it's full 90 watt per hour. All right, because the GPU is just all working. It's always G-Sync. It's it's high refresh rate and stuff, 60 hertz. It does get hot, so they have to put a fan near the battery.
Okay. Now, one concern I had on it is the power supply. They ship a 250 watt power supply, don't they?
Right, yeah.
Do you think that's a bit low for a GTX 1080?
It is very low, and there's one unfortunate thing about this. I checked the BIOS on the GPU, and the BIOS is not like the one that you find in an MSI or an Alienware with the 1080. It's actually downgraded on the power limit, on the watt limit. The one that you find in the Alienware 17 GTX 1080, it's 160 watts. The one that you find in the Razer Blade Pro, it's 140 watts. So that's 20 watts less. So let's say you're losing a lot of performance. In my benchmarks, I was getting around the same performance on, like if you had a GTX 1070.
That's crazy, isn't it?
That is crazy, yeah. I could modify the video BIOS and told them, you know what, you should put this. But as soon as I add those 20 watts more, just that computer's just going to burn out,
Yeah.
It's going to overheat all the way. It's just going to be a crazy throttling everywhere. So it's a nice design. It's a very powerful graphic card. Like if you're going to use it just for rendering or for professional work, it's fine. It's going to work at 100%, 140 40 watts is enough. For gamers and benchmarkers and all those pro people that I'm sure all of them are your viewers, they're pretty much, I think they're going to be very disappointed because
I think so, because you're paying top dollar for that machine.
right.
Yeah.
It was running around. It's supposed to be around 1,800 megahertz the GPU, and it drops down to 1,400 depending on the benchmark, which is a lot of loss of performance. It was rolling around the same performance as the GTX 1070.
That's crazy. Now, when are they going to refresh the Kaby Lake? Because the Alienware's launching theirs today.
Right, they were launched for Alienware. They were launched today. Unfortunately, I'm in Canada. They're gonna be maybe it's gonna take maybe like 2 months to arrive.
Yeah, you guys are way behind.
Yeah, unfortunately,
You socialists.
Yeah, well, the Kaby Lake for the Razers, I don't think they're gonna be updated anytime soon. Maybe 8 months more. They always take a lot of time to upgrade their CPUs. I know that they will upgrade maybe for next month to Kaby Lake. It's gonna be the new Asus, the one you mentioned. I forgot the model.
Is that the yes, that 8800 G1? Yeah. I've got one viewer that's interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very nice model. And Alienware, well, it was upgraded today. Not all models have been upgraded because I'm sure they have to go through some manufacturing process all over again. And delays on shippings and like always on Alienware. But Razer Blade, I don't think any of the Razer Blades that you see right now in their page are going to be upgraded anytime soon. Maybe 8 months more. They always take a lot of time. They are like MacBooks.
Yeah.
They follow a little bit of Apple sense,
It'll take a bit of time. Now, you are an expert on Alienware. I know that you've got like 4 or 5 Alienware 15s lying around the house.
Yeah. Each for one hand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, of course, these are new machines. Have you had a chance to see if they've got the new thermal paste?
I actually got one of the old thermal paste. I got it actually by force because I told this guy who was selling a refurbished computer. When I talked to Alienware, to one of the technicians that works inside in that particular section for refurbished, he told me that he received up to 400 units, I think, that were reported as
being too hot.
Yeah, they were reported as they were having issues. Some of them were sold and people returned them. They were sent to the outlet section or the refurbished section where they just replaced them. But some of them, almost like half of them, more than half of them, they weren't even open box. They were brand new, sealed, never opened. They were taken right away to the outlet section, to the refurbished section, just to clean them up, to replace them and everything. And then they started selling it. And I know this guy who buys them refurbished. He had one of them. Can I take a look on your system? And I opened it. And I saw one of the thermal pads that was making actually a problem, that it's on the transistors on top of the generators on the CPU. There's a thermal pad that actually is thicker than it's supposed to be. And it has to be like super thin. I don't know how many millimeters it's supposed to be. So that was making the heatsink to step up a little, so it wasn't touching the CPU as much. The CPU was throttling all around. It was all messed up. But thermal paste, one thing people are saying that, okay, we are getting the same thermal paste, whatever. All the computer has the same thermal paste, even the ones that had issues. The issue was just the thermal pad. That thermal pad was making just the heatsink just go a little bit up, and then it wasn't touching the CPU. If the CPU gets hot, it's all getting hot. It's throttling. The GPU gets throttled. So it was a mess. So what they did is that they just exchanged that thermal pad. And of course, they replaced it because once you open it, you screw up.
Often these refurbished units have a good success rate of being good.
Yeah, they were good. That's the only one that I had.
Have you looked at an Alienware 13s?
Yeah, I have one here actually. You want to take a look at it?
Yeah, let's have a look.
It's just brand new in the box. I have to open it.
Nice. And
it's Alienware in here.
Makes a change at not being too heavy.
Yeah. It is heavy than the last year's 13-inch. And this is the unit, which is very small. You can't even grab it one hand.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That's nice. I like it.
It's very light. Like, it has a good support aluminum in the motherboard, so there's no way you can crack this thing up, or it just doesn't feel weak.
And how many SD slots does it have? 2?
That's two SSDs, NVMe or SATA. I don't think it'll be.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, 2 there. Okay.
Some people think that if you choose the i5 model or the i7 model, you're gonna get different heatsink, like the Alienware 15 or Alienware 7. In this one, whatever model you choose, no matter what, you're gonna get the 3 pipes heatsink. Maybe the new ones that just came out with the GTX 1050 Ti or 1050, the ones just were announced today, they may come differently, maybe with just two pipes or something. This one comes with three pipes.
All right, I see. Yeah, okay.
And even though the fan covers here, the protection for the fans are made of copper.
That's nice. Yeah, okay.
There's one thing that Alienware is doing right now, Dell is doing wrong, which is shipping computers with you choose 8 gigabytes, but they're shipping it with one RAM. So CPUs needs dual channel to perform better, even on physics, on graphics. In my benchmarks, I run one RAM, and you can see the loss of performance it's drastic. So this is an 8 gigabytes, and it was ordered as 8 gigabytes. I think they make this wrong, or maybe they're doing it just to save money, but it should be 4 and 4 at least, just to have some dual channel performance. But they're not. If you're buying an Alienware or any laptop, double check all the time that it's a dual channel. On the Alienware 13, many people think, okay, the RAM comes with 2133 megahertz. So later I'm going to upgrade to 2667 megahertz, and I'm going to just add it in just to have better overall performance on the system and faster RAM. The thing is, the BIOS in these computers are already set to downclock any RAM to the default 2133 megahertz of DDR4. So for those users who wants to buy a RAM or a faster RAM, don't buy any expensive RAM. Just buy a 2100 only for the Alienware 13. Just buy a 2133 megahertz because you don't want to waste your money there. And this RAM actually is using it's a 2400 megahertz.
So it's got 2400 megahertz RAM, but the BIOS says max 2133.
That is correct. Yeah.
That's good to know, though. The 15 doesn't have the same issue? No,
the 15 has an automatic options, like you change your RAM and it's just going to set the RAM that you have. They didn't add the profiles on this one.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, we can see
you
that.
See it?
Yep, we can see that. Yep.
Right, 2100. It's a 2400. And I have a RAM, which are my favorite. I always keep those RAM with me for any computer that I use. They are 2800, and they work on the Alienware 15. They work on the Alienware 17. They won't work in this.
And I think in Skylake, you see benefits for faster RAM, don't you? So
Oh, yes.
Yeah, big stuff.
It's a lot, yes. Skylake and Kaby Lake, they benefit a lot, especially for the Intel HD, because the Intel HD runs as physics processor as an extra core. Even though it's disabled, it's going to keep using it for games.
That's good to know. That's a nice tip. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw in the Alienware website they are selling this computer, the Alienware 13, with a 2400 megahertz RAM as 100. You have to pay $150 or $100 extra, and you get the extra faster RAM. But you pay that, and it won't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's already set to 2133, so just gonna waste your money. Yeah.
That's great. That's a nice tip. That. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
They decided to do this in this Alienware just to keep the overall cooling in it. Just to
keep it cool.
Yeah, to keep it cooler. Okay, temperatures in the Alienware 13, when you run heavy benchmarks and stress tests on this Alienware, it's gonna get hot, very hot. Okay, extreme hot. I opened it already and I checked if it was a bad thermal paste or everything. No, it's just that it's too thin and it's too small, and it's running a GTS desktop 1060. I did run the 1060 at its maximum and the CPU at its maximum, and I was getting around 90 Celsius on the GPU. Wow. But it wasn't throttling. It wasn't even giving me any warning that it was throttling because of thermal limit or something. It's set to 92 Celsius. The GPU goes up to 90 Celsius. I'm talking about stress test, extreme stress test, okay?
Yeah.
And the CPU went up to, the CPU was actually very cool. Well, it was very good. It went up to 83 Celsius maximum. I think that's the maximum I saw the CPU, and never throttled down.
That's nice.
Yeah, never throttled down the CPU, but the GPU, get hot. Once I run games in it, everything was cool. The GPU stayed up to 70 Celsius. and the CPU always full clock, no overheating in it. The CPU run around same thing, 60, 70 Celsius, 70 Celsius, I think.
So did you
Yeah.
work on the BIOS on that to
No,
change
no,
the
no,
fan
no.
profile? No?
No, the BIOS is fine. It's just that people who said that it's overheating on everything, just a small tip, like you mentioned them before. Try to turn on the BIOS, go to performance mode, turn on the CPU performance mode, not the fan performance mode, because the fan performance mode is very annoying and it makes a lot of noise and it doesn't make sense. They shouldn't even have that, but okay, they added it because people wanted it. Just go to the BIOS, go to performance, and turn on the CPU performance mode. That will change the profile for the CPU and GPU and keep the system cooler. As soon as I turn on the CPU performance mode, I'm going to get around 10, 20 Celsius less.
Oh, wow.
So,
big difference.
Yeah. It stays the same as the Alienware 15 Celsius on the GPU.
Oh, that's a good tip.
So if you want better cooling, just turn it on. It's going to make more noise and everything. I like to keep them default just to save power consumption on battery, because as soon as you unplug it, if you have it on CPU performance mode on the BIOS, the fan is always going to stay on in quiet mode. It's very hard to hear them, but it's always on. So it takes a lot of power from the battery. If you have it off from the BIOS, if you have it on default and everything, the fans are going to be off all the time. As soon as you start a game, they're going to start on. And pretty much you're going to save a lot of battery life.
What battery life do you get on that?
Battery life, I get around, let's say if you're working on Word Excel, you get around 8 hours.
Wow.
If you put it on power saving, and you activate the battery saver option on Windows 10, you're going to get around 18 hours on this thing. And that I'm talking about if you have, all those options, the BIOS off, the BIOS performance mode off, and the battery wattage is 78 watts.
Now, I understand that you're also quite a bit of an entrepreneur yourself, and you've got a handheld PC gaming machine, which looks very interesting.
Yeah, I want to talk about it a little bit. I can't talk too much right now for the users, online viewers, because it's just a prototype. This is the iPlay 10. It's the same device. They call it iPlay 7. It runs Android. It's very old. It's like 3 years old, I think. This one, it's the new redesign model. Let's say they opt to add a ULB CPU i5. It's around, I think, 5 watts, the CPU, and it's running NVIDIA graphics.
That's fantastic. And you can play. You showed me clips. You're playing Grand Theft Auto 5 on it.
This is a tip for your users, that if you're buying a gaming laptop for games only, don't get NVMe. It just won't make any difference on gaming to the normal SSD that you already have. If you have the option in your purchase website to have a different SSD, just get a cheapest SSD and just add it yourself later to a cheaper one. Try to save a lot of cash. NVMe doesn't make any sense on gaming. It's just for video editing or rendering. Actually, there's a problem with all the Alienwares that I want to mention. That's very important. Many people maybe didn't notice it yet, and they think that they're not getting too much battery life on their computers. The thing is, there's a problem right now with the new Windows update, the new revision that they just launched, Windows 10, that as soon as you click something, the GPU activates itself for about a second, so it gives you some kind of lag in the mouse. Have you felt that?
I have occasionally, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like when you open Internet Explorer as example, and
you get a spike.
Feel like the mouse stuck for a second and then comes back. That's because the Optimus is not working very well with the units. I think that needs a little bit of a BIOS tweak. So maybe an upcoming BIOS will be needed for Alienware. What happened here is that when you open something, let's say an Internet Explorer, the GPU activates itself, the discrete GPU activates itself for about 1 second to see if this task needs the performance from the GPU, and it turns off back again. That takes a lot of power consumption for battery life, so it's going to give you a lot less battery life.
Wow. I know they've launched a new BIOS 1.09. It's not fixed in that then, no?
I haven't seen it yet. Do you have it?
No, well, I don't have an Alienware anymore. I've sent all mine back, haven't I? Well, that's an interesting tip. Yeah, you don't want that, do you? I mean, you think that'd be an NVIDIA issue, wouldn't you? More than
I hope it's the driver update. This mostly happens, I've seen it before. I have a solution for it. The way to fix it is to disable transparency in your overall Windows. Like
Okay.
if you go to Control Panel and then System and you go to Advanced System Settings, there you have an option that calls performance for your Windows. If you adjust that for best performance, it's just going to disable all the fancy stuff on Windows and everything. And also disabling the transparency on Windows will help a lot.
So it's a bit like the old Aero interface on Vista.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That thing, yes. Yeah, that causes the GPU to start many times, and that pretty much takes a lot of battery consumption. Yeah, I would like to mention one thing. Many people have ordered the Alienware Backpacks, and they have reported that doesn't fit in their Alienware 15s or 17. For all users out there, just be careful. If you're going to choose the Alienware Backpack, just be sure that you're choosing the B2. There's a B1 and B2. The B1 doesn't fit in the new Alienwares because they are long. Just check and choose the B2. I'm going to show you here the model.
Oh, right, yeah, we see it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you brought up some great points there, Exklim, and thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. If you like our video, please thumbs up and subscribe, and hope to see you next time.
Share to your friends and comment.
Yeah, no, but look forward to your prototype hitting the streets.
If you have any question, you can comment. Me and Stephen, we're gonna try to answer as much as we can.
Great.
We're gonna keep you up to
date. Thanks again.
Right.
Have a good night.
See you.
Bye.